Thank you for joining me for this, the 15th episode of Citizen Arcane. I'm calling this one The History of Porn. It came to mind when I saw that television show The Deuce, which is about sort of the rise of the porn industry. And there's a few books that I've come across that I think are significant. One that I read, that I sought out, was called Ordeal by Linda Lovelace. It's mostly about the trauma that it brought into her life, especially by a boyfriend slash pimp slash Svengali named Chuck Trainer. It should be mentioned that she wrote another book while she was still in the porn industry called Inside Linda Lovelace, which I have not read, but apparently it's a little bit more sympathetic to the porn world. Now, there are definitely two trains of thought. One is that, in the books that I've read, is that porn is this traumatic thing that a person's life never recovers from, and it's terrible, which tends to be the way I see it. The other is that, oh, it's all fun, everybody's having a good time, it's no problem. And in that one comes Ron Jeremy, the hardest working man in showbiz, Horny Women, Hollywood Nights, and the Rise of the Hedgehog. And one of the things that really stuck out for me in reading that book is just how blasé Ron Jeremy was about the suffering of others, including contemporary John Holmes, who I think everybody who's seen Boogie Nights or anything knows that his life ended just tragically. I mean, it was awful. I guess he had a little bit of glory after he was discovered, but he really ended tragically. And Ron Jeremy, not just with him, but many other people whose lives were destroyed by porn and the sex industry, really seemed like he just didn't seem to care, and hey, I'm having a good time, so why worry about it? A book that I'm going to read about John Holmes is called John Holmes, A Life Measured in Inches, which seems to be well regarded. I'm going to put some information up about that on the screen too, as a biography. And in that book, along with Linda Lovelace's book, there are some mentions of Hugh Hefner and how he was not just sort of this women's liberation through porn. He was not really a good guy, and I think that that's going to come out now that he's passed. And I think that other histories are going to bring that to light. The Bill Cosby thing has also been mentioned. In addition to that, in reference to Hugh Hefner, there was The Killing of the Unicorn by Peter Bogdonicv, and that name is probably familiar to a lot of people because he is a Hollywood type. He's been in several movies. He's a major producer, and he had an affair with a very young actress who was killed by a boyfriend. And this book is just so self-serving. It is amazing how he says, oh, you know, even though she was a 21-year-old girl and I was a 40-whatever-year-old thrice divorced man, but I was the one who truly loved her, and I was the one person who was not exploiting her in one way or another. That one, I would say, you know, if you want to read something and wind up just feeling like this is a person who is actively trying to manipulate me, get a hold of The Killing of the Unicorn. Back to John Holmes. The Road to Wonderland: Surviving John Holmes is a book. That's by Don Shiller, who met John Holmes, I think, while he was still active in the porn industry, but near the end of his career. It is There But For the Grace of God Go I autobiography, and it is grim, as are most of them. One more that I actually have read was as Tracy Lord's Underneath It All, which was written, I think, at a time contemporaneous when she was doing the John Waters movies. She looks back at that time in her life as being a mixed blessing, mostly on the negative, but she just sort of looks at it as a life long ago lived. There's some books that I definitely want to read. The Devil Made Me Do It by Georgia Spelvina. That one is historically significant for the industry. The Happy Hooker, which I read my own story. The Happy Hooker, My Own Story. And yeah, so those are basically books about porn and or the sex industry that I've either read or that are on my TBR. I'd love to hear what anybody else has to say on this particular topic. Please do take a look at the links in the links below.